Hello YouTube, Jeff Steele here with SteelNavigator, and today I want to offer some tips for the beginner hunters. I've been hunting since I was about 8 years old. Now I'm 30. I've hunted about any type of species you can think of in the southeastern United States. So a few months ago I happened to come across this information from a friend of mine who happened to pick up a plaque from a yard sale. And I found it very interesting. Never heard of it before, and I thought this would be some great information for all of the new hunters out there to consider and sort of use as some guidelines. I didn't know about these, again, until recently. So this is called Fred Bear's 10 Commandments for Every Hunter. Fred Bear is a world-renowned hunter, bow hunter especially, used a recurve bow most of his hunting career. He's probably harvested multiple of every species in North America, to the best of my knowledge. And of course, there's the Fred Bear bow lines that we know today. So I'll start with number 1. Don't step on anything you can step over. And I think what he means by this is if you can avoid stepping on a stick, breaking that stick, or stepping on maybe a pile of leaves, it's going to create noise. We want to be as quiet as we possibly can while we're in the woods or in the bush. So that's what I think he means by that. Number 2, don't look for deer, look for movement. And remember, it's what they are looking for too. And this is absolutely true. And when you're in the forest, most everything is still unless it's a very windy day. And when you see movement, it's always game 99% of the time, again, unless it's a windy day. So that's the first thing, is just look for movement. And when hunting, it's good to be not just as quiet as possible, but as still as possible as well. So look for movement. Number 3, always approach downwind. In the cool of the day, move uphill. In the heat of the day, move downhill. So in the cool of the day, of course, it's going to be better to put forth more physical exertion, and it being cooler, of course, one would use less energy, perspire less. And approach downwind. The game out there, that's one of their main defense mechanisms, is their sense of smell. So the wind's always changing, but it's just good to do the best that we can with the wind and try to stay downwind. And during the heat of the day, move downhill. Of course, that's when we're going to use the least amount of physical exertions, moving downhill, producing less body heat than moving uphill, and so it's better to go downhill during the heat of the day. It's all about conserving one's energy here. Number 4, the best camouflage pattern is called sit down and be quiet. I would also add be still. It says your grandpa hunted deer in a red plaid coat. Think about that for a second. Your grandpa hunted deer in a red plaid coat. That's one of the reasons I'm wearing this red plaid shirt. So the main thing that animals look for is movement. If one stays still, you could almost be wearing anything. Of course, depending on the species, predator species, their eyes are much more keen than, say, a non-predator species such as deer. But again, what they look for is movement. And give an example, a guy at one of our hunting clubs, he usually just wears blue jeans and a t-shirt, doesn't even wear camouflage. And on countless occasions, he's had deer get within 10 or 15 feet just looking at him, and he just doesn't move. They can't figure out what he is. So again, the main thing is movement, not so much camouflage. Number 5, Take only the gear to the field that allows you to hunt longer, harder, and smarter. In today's time, there's countless products for hunters, some of which are less useful than others. One also needs to consider weight when in the field. Carrying numerous gadgets and gizmos just adds to one's weight. And of course, the more weight one's carrying, the more physical exertion that's going to take. So really looking at gear, how much value is it really bringing you at the end of the day? Is it really helping you complete your goal, what you set out for? So it's really good to analyze and not just pick up anything that's being advertised promising a win. 6, a rainstorm isn't a reason to quit the hunt, it's a reason to stay. And I've heard old time hunters talk about this. When it rains, a deer doesn't have a house to go into. And unless it's a heavy lightning thunderstorm, they're going to continue on with their patterns. They'll be a little bit more cautious maybe, but they'll continue on. They're not going to run and hide in the thicket just because there's a little bit of rain. My only thought on this is I don't mind the weather myself. The only thing I get concerned about in the weather is my gear. I don't want my gear to be damaged. For example, a firearm, it can cause quicker corrosion. So that's my only concern really with inclement weather and hunting, is the effects on it that it has on my gear. That's the only concerns I have. 7, camouflage your appearance, your sound, and your scent. I think this really looks at also what species are you hunting. If you're hunting a predator species, coyote, bobcat, something with really keen vision, you're going to need to take extra care as far as doctoring up the camouflage. And the sound, no matter what you're hunting, we want to be as quiet as we possibly can. I don't even like personally using deer calls. I did when I was younger. I feel like younger bucks are more responsive to the grunt calls and the rattling horns, but I feel like once a buck becomes mature, he's a little too smart for that. The biggest bucks that I've taken, I was using no scents, no calls, just being as quiet as I possibly could. Number 8, be sure of your shot. Nothing is more expensive than regret. So, practice with your bow, with your firearm, whatever your tool you're going to be using to harvest the species that you're hunting. Practice is everything. Practice will bring confidence when you're in the field. And when you're in the field and you're about to harvest an animal, there's quite a bit of adrenaline flowing. It's important to stay focused, keep your eye on the target, and squeeze through, staying focused on the target, not looking for the aftermath. It's very important. And missing a shot, it's troublesome. It really is. So just practice and try to keep your nerves in check. Number 9, hunt where the deer actually are, not where you'd imagine them to be. I can really relate to this. Being out in the woods, I've seen a lot of beautiful places. A lot of places I would think would be, for example, a deer's paradise. There might be fresh water. There might be really thick bedding areas. I mean, really, just a really secluded area, maybe really far off the trail that looks almost perfect, as if every deer in the woods should be there. A lot of times, this just isn't the case. A lot of times, the deer will be where you think they would never be. I've seen situations where they, on a piece of property, they weren't near thick bedding area. They were not near water. They were not near fresh forage. They'd be up on a barren pine ridge with not much forage at all. It's just, sometimes it's just opposite what you think. So go where the deer are, not what you think they would be. 10, final. Next year's hunt begins the minute the season's hunt ends. So this all goes to preparation. Failure to plan is planning to fail. So as soon as the current season ends, planning needs to go in for the next season. Planning, preparing, and then executing those plans. That's going to be the difference of a winning and a losing season. So for the beginner hunters out there, I hope this helps. Again, this is Fred Bear's 10 Commandments for Every Hunter. I wish I would have saw this when I was 8 years old versus 30. Like, subscribe, comment down below. What tips do you have? Do you have any other great information from world-renowned hunters, such as Fred Bear? Let me know.